All right, and we are back with another episode of the Baseline Bums podcast. It is your boy Rob, aka B-Ball Archives, and once again, I am joined by my boy AJ.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate that. Back to you.
Absolutely, glad to have you on. Glad to have you on again for another week. We got some good topics. The first one we are going to be discussing is 40 the new 30. No, we're not talking about age. We're talking about scoring in the NBA. We have seen a tremendous amount of scoring uptick in the recent years. We're going to be talking about that and why that's kind of happening. And then we're going to dive into one of our personal favorite topics.
Our childhood.
Yes, absolutely. A little Spurs Mavs rivalry talk.
Let's see how many people we can piss off in Dallas.
Hopefully all of them. Hopefully all of them. Yeah, because we definitely have the upper hand on that, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into that. Great rivalry, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great one.
Underrated for sure. But let's just dive into our first topic. Is 40 the new 30? Scoring in the NBA is up tremendously. We're seeing players score points at an incredible clip. Let's rewind just 10 years ago. Melo was the leading scorer in the NBA at 28.7 a game. There's 8 players this season that have more than that.
Good God.
When we look at that same season, in the entire season, there was 37 40 or more point games. There's already been 100 this season. We've seen 3 times as many 40-point games as just a decade ago. And it's pretty crazy when you see 42 or more guys are averaging over 20 points a game.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, all these statistics are absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah,
crazy. My biggest one is in that 10 years, the total NBA has gone up in points by 14, which is like, you think about the 14 points, that's 7 possessions.
Yeah.
So it's just skyrocketed. And I mean, a lot of it has to do with just the way the NBA is played now. I think for the most part, defenses are almost handcuffed at this point. Because you look at the stats from like the 80s and the 90s, obviously there's lower scoring. There's always going to be guys that score 30 points every year. It's going to happen.
Well, not 10 years ago.
We're not 10 years ago, but pretty close. Like it's in that 28 to 32 range. Yeah, I would say. And so just seeing what the defenses are now compared to then, because like if you're like a Ja Morant and you come into the lane, you bet that 7-footer is just going to give you a little forearm and you're going to go flying, and they're just going to call a regular foul, nothing crazy. Like you might have a little scuffle, but that has completely gone out of the game. Yeah. Dirty plays are out of the game. Obviously hand checking was a thing back then, but they've definitely they didn't really call it, and now it's like you can't even like touch them.
Right. I mean, I agree. I agree to a large degree that there's defenders just aren't allowed to be as physical. Yeah. And when you take that physicality away, offense just becomes very, very easy. Mm-hmm. I don't think that necessarily defenses need to be able to full-blown hand check people. Yeah. But I think that there needs to be an allowance for a little bit of contact to be made at all times.
They need to be in the jersey. Like, if they want to see who the best defenders are, like let it go a little bit. Yeah. Let them be a little more physical. Like, come playoff time, people always get mad because there's such a vast difference in the way that the game's called from the first half to the second half. And it's never really consistent. And they're like, well, then you need to swallow your whistles in the fourth quarter and things like that. But, I mean, the game's the game. The call's the call. You can call it the entire time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there is that absence of it. They want to see more offense in the game. I feel like whenever you look at things like something I've seen in the last few years is the gather step. Yeah. To me is just like the increase of how many people are essentially taking one extra step more than a lot of people were doing 10, 15 years ago.
Or the step back.
Yeah. The step back is another good example of that as well. But all of these things are changing the way that defenders have to defend, and it's really not creating a level playing field. Offense has become essentially nerfed.
Oh, for sure.
To a certain degree. I don't want to say it's easy to score in the NBA.
No.
I don't want to say it's easy to score. It's just easier.
Yeah. And also, too, one thing, I mean, my first thought is, would Bruce Bowen be effective in this NBA? Like, I think he would to an extent, but
he wouldn't be allowed to kick people in the face.
He's definitely, well, I don't know. Didn't the Draymond Green do it, or someone did it recently?
Yeah.
I forgot who it was. So someone kicked someone in the face recently.
People do still kick people, but they don't really get away with it.
But I mean, like, the way he would guard like Dirk, he would be like in his jersey and like really up on him, and he would always have his hands out and his chest up. Would he be able to do that in this NBA? Would he be able to, basically run around the perimeter the whole time trying to fight off screens? Like, I would love to know that. What would he translate? Because obviously he's probably one of the best defenders in that era.
Yeah.
Would that translate to now?
Yeah.
It's hard to say. It's really because.
I mean, I'm almost leaning towards no. I think that he benefited from playing in a more physical era that was primarily dominated by people playing down low basketball, and that meant being physical.
Yeah.
So people just associated, all right, basketball is physical. And now, since we're seeing more shooting on the three, more perimeter scoring, basketball has almost flipped on its head, and people are valuing skill more than they ever have, which they absolutely should.
For sure.
But let's not forget people down low that are battling and able to bring that physicality as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also another one is like the 3-point shot.
Yeah, the emergence, it's night and day.
Oh, I mean, where they're taking 34 attempts per game. That's the average right now.
Yeah.
Which is, you're taking 35 3-pointers a game. You get what, 80, 90 possessions, give or take, maybe more.
Yeah.
What's the average now from possessions?
Yeah, I want to say it's up a little bit from that. Yeah, it's
so you're taking more threes. I mean, you're up 10 3-pointers per game from 10 years ago, which is, I mean, it's wild.
Yeah, it's night and day. People just were not taking that many threes. Some of the lowest 3-point shooting teams 10 years ago, maybe 10, 12% of their offense came from three.
Right.
Now the lowest teams, 25, almost 30% of their offense comes from three.
Yeah,
it's wild.
Which kind of goes back, if would Bruce Bowen be effective on the offensive end? Because all he did was shoot 3-pointers. He was very efficient at it, but I mean, he only took it from one side of the court, and that was on the corner. So
yeah, and he was trash at free throws too. You got to look at it from efficiency standpoint.
Yeah, so someone like him, like, I don't know if he would cut it in today's NBA.
Right. That really makes you think about defenders and what generations value, because I think it used to be rim protectors, and now we're seeing the rise of the perimeter defender again, where you see a guy like Marcus Smart win it last year. We could see a guy like OG Anunoby win it this year.
Right.
I think maybe Nick Claxton and Brook Lopez, Giannis, these guys are probably just as likely. But we're seeing that this new generation is just valuing different things.
Well, this generation also grew up with like Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Damian Lillard and those guys shooting 45-foot shots.
Yeah.
Because you think about, like, okay, they came in the league, what, about 10 years ago, give or take?
Yeah, a little bit more.
And so those kids were, 7, 8 years old at the time when they started lighting it up. So now they're going through adolescence while they're, like, basically in the peak of their career, if not, peaking.
Yeah.
And so now they get into the NBA, and their game, since being a kid, has been shooting threes or shooting outside. Get into the bucket and shooting threes.
Yeah.
That's what the NBA's become.
Right. Because whenever that should be like a skill that's prioritized later on. And it seems to be just brought right to the forefront, because a lot of the popular guys, that's what they're doing.
That's what they're and so people like us in our time, we grew up with big guys. So post people.
Yeah.
Back to the basket. You're going to get the ball. You want it up here, you want it down here. Where do you want it? And if you had a big that shot a 3-pointer like a Robert Horry, Matt Bonner type dude, then great. If not, then who cares?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, just a completely different league and a different time, and it's just nice to appreciate the eras in their own separate ways.
I feel like everyone's like 6'5" to 6'8", and just 7'6" wingspan. I think everyone in the NBA is just like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
It is wild.
And it makes the drafts really difficult. And kind of going back to a previous conversation we've had on several podcasts, my biggest pet peeve in draft night is the potential. But then if you have like the frame, that typically translates to being a decent player in the NBA.
Yeah.
So that people I think are starting to really look at that frame more than anything.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people that will point to, all right, he's got the skill set. Like you were saying, the frame, like what can we build on?
Yeah.
People just want to see, do you have that foundation?
Right.
That's a really good point. One of the other things I was thinking about was that the league is just needing to expand.
Yeah.
It's just gotten to a point where like I feel it needs more than 30 teams.
Yeah, I agree.
There's just too much talent. That's why we're seeing Vegas, we're seeing Seattle. I even think in the next couple of years we're gonna have a team in Mexico. We're gonna have a Mexico City team. It makes too much sense from an economic standpoint. They would step in and have the market of New York or LA instantly.
Yeah, can we expand a little more on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So my wife and I went to Mexico about 2 weeks ago now, and there's a G League team in Mexico City.
Yeah.
Called the Capitans.
Yeah.
And it was really cool because they were playing the Austin Spurs, and we were at the bar, and so I got to watch a G League game in Mexico with their local team. And I tell you what, the guys that were like from Mexico, they knew every single player on that team.
Oh, wow.
And like they were like, oh yeah, you gotta watch out for this guy because he might be the next, blah blah blah. Or like, hey, this guy has been going back and forth between them and the Warriors or whoever they're affiliated with. And so it was really cool to be in that atmosphere and see them embrace it. And also, Mexico City would be a terrible place to play. You would have such a home court advantage.
That's true.
Because one, it's higher. It's I think 1,000 feet higher than Denver.
Yeah.
It's also in between two mountains, so all that smog just kind of like fills the air. And so like you're in a facility, you're playing indoors, which is easier than playing soccer, but you're still going to be at altitude.
Yeah.
Which, could really mess with you for sure. So it would really cool. It'd be cool to see Seattle, Vegas, Mexico City, and I thought St. Louis could support a team. They had a team.
Yeah, absolutely. They did have a team for a little bit. I mean,
even Kansas City.
Seattle and Las Vegas are like, they're happening.
Yeah, they're locked.
Yeah, they're locked and happening. I think, Mexico City just makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I love to hear that there's that amount of support there
for sure.
locally. And when you look at the population and then how they already take to other sports, I mean,
football,
that interest is going to be there immediately.
Yeah.
And you would like I was saying earlier, you'd have a market that rivals LA, New York instantly.
Yeah.
And it would honestly probably be a top 3 market in the NBA away.
What's interesting is unfortunately the Spurs aren't big enough to be like a Jerry Jones with football and say, no, that's our fan base. We're not gonna, because a lot of people from Mexico City are huge Spurs fans.
Right. They are.
So you would essentially you'd instantly take away that fan base for the Spurs because, but like I said, they're not big enough to really have a seat at the table.
Right. Well, and they're always going to support local.
Yeah.
Like if somebody is right down the road,
right,
like 20, 30, 40 minutes away, they're going to support them at all times. And it's like if the NBA is making that move, they're going to get those supporters. And yeah,
it'll be definitely fun to see. And St. Louis, Kansas City, I think those two cities have a case. Kansas City, that's where basketball was born. I mean, not Kansas City, but in Kansas.
Yeah.
So put in Missouri or wherever, and definitely put a team out there, and then you should be good to go. We'll have 34 teams at that point, and we'll kind of see where the cookie crumbles from there.
Right. I think that could help distribute talent. I mean, that could be what is needed right now to just go back what we were saying earlier to maybe help adjust some of this scoring a little bit. Not saying that the NBA needs to be nerfed because people are scoring too much, but it would be nice to see a more competitive atmosphere.
Yeah, it would flatten the curve a little bit.
Yeah, I totally agree. But yeah, definitely interesting to talk about the scoring differences between now and then.
Looking it up is one of the craziest things we ever looked up. Because I mean, you've seen the change. You've seen that everyone plays differently. You've seen 3-pointers come in. You see it, but then when you start really putting numbers to it, you're like, what is happening?
Oh yeah, like it used to not happen on a nightly basis, but now there can be 2 people that put up 40-point games on one team's got a 40-point guy, the other team's got a 40-point guy, and that's pretty common.
Yeah,
and it's like to not even be at the All-Star break and there's already been over 140 pieces is absolutely mind-boggling.
Oh, that's insane. And then that's why a lot of teams don't have a coach like Popovich in terms of having that long-term longevity with the squad, because the game's changed so much. And so if you come in with old school ideas and you can't adapt and change, you're just not going to have a job essentially. Yeah. That's why we're seeing a lot of former talent as coaches, like a Jacques Vaughn. Like he's being very successful because he's like, all right, I played in this era and I've seen coaching in this era.
Yeah,
I can make a hybrid of the two.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's very, very fascinating. So if you guys get a chance, definitely do a little bit of a deep dive into that.
Oh yeah, it's really interesting seeing how the NBA scoring is just night and day.
Yep.
Oh yeah, but yeah, that was a good topic. I really enjoyed that. That was it was nice to sort of reminisce on some of the old teams that scored a lot. But moving right along, and speaking of reminiscing, this is a rivalry that really doesn't exist anymore per se.
Yeah.
But it was really, really dope for a while. Spurs Mavs rivalry.
That was fun.
The I-35 rivalry.
Oh man, it was good.
Yeah. There's a lot of anger down I-35, and this was kind of one of them. So whenever we're thinking of Spurs Mavs rivalry, what kind of comes to mind for you, AJ?
Well, what comes to mind is the markets. I'm like, cool, Austin's on our side. You got Waco, perfect.
Waco.
But I think what was really fun for me was kind of going back to whenever we went to college, and that was really the first time for me, at least, I really interacted with a lot of people from the Metroplex or just anywhere outside of San Antonio.
Bunch of Mavs fans.
Bunch of Mavs fans. Everyone we met was the Mavs fans, and they were just the cockiest, loudest people in the room because they got lucky in 06. And
11
was 11. Oh yeah.
Well, they won in 2011.
Oh
but
yeah.
They did make it to the finals in 06.
Yeah, I think didn't they knock us out?
Yeah.
Yeah, in 06.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I was just culture shocked, I guess.
Yeah.
To hear people flap their jaws about being a Mavs fan. I'm like, why?
Right. Now that you brought that up, that was an interesting point in time. We were just surrounded by a lot of Mavs fans, and we really had to stake our claim as Spurs fans then more than ever because we had been in San Antonio, and it was easy to be a Spurs fan in San Antonio. But now,
being a Spurs fan in Lubbock is hard because they weren't showing the games at the time.
No.
Like you really had to like dig deep to find the games because they were always show Mavs games because that was the market. And so, for me, it was, that just from the 2000s to the 2010s, really.
Yeah.
And then 2014 was like kind of a cherry on top before we kind of set sail for our next chapter in the organization. But, you think of all the names that came through that rivalry, like when Steve Kerr was in 2003 when he was on his last hurrah.
Yeah.
And he went off in, I think, Game 6. To close out the series.
Yeah.
And, you're thinking, like, out of all the people, freaking Steve Kerr is out there just balling, and the Mavs couldn't stop him.
Right.
Like, they just couldn't stop. He was always open. You just got open.
Yeah, and both of our teams were amazing that year.
Yeah.
We were both 60-win teams.
Yeah.
It wasn't like... I mean, we had prime Tim Duncan, so I felt more confident than in our team than they had in theirs. But at the end of the day... It was a situation where, any team could have won.
Yeah.
That's why it goes down to that series was 6.
We
won 6, yeah. Yeah, but absolute craziness. There's so many good Spurs Mavs. Like I also think about when Avery Johnson became the coach
of the Mavs. That was rough.
Oh, that was a heated Spurs Mavs moment right there. I'm not going to lie. I got a little salty about that.
I got salty too. And then I was even more salty when they're like, we're retiring his number. But he was a Mavs coach.
Yeah, he was not a Mavs player.
I mean, okay. But I was like, I mean, I know he made the shot. And I know San Antonio loves the stories and loves reminiscing the nostalgia. But, he's the Mavs coach, man.
He was the Mavs coach.
He took our secret documents and told the Mavs organization.
Nah, because he didn't really. They didn't really do anything until Carlisle took over.
Yeah. Well, another thing that kind of gets overlooked too is that Spurs Mavs rivalry was the only time Timmy got ejected.
Oh yeah, good point.
Because of what's his name, Joey Crawford.
Yeah.
When he started laughing on the bench, and that was during the Mavs Spurs, a heated Spurs Mavs game. I believe it was a playoff game too, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
So I mean, and he was laughing on the bench because they were calling some really BS calls, and started laughing on the bench, and he got ejected, and it was in Dallas, and so everyone goes nuts, and that kind of put everyone on notice that. Like, oh, Tim Duncan got ejected? Like, how? Why? Did he look at him? Like, what happened?
Yeah, he was laughing. He did absolutely nothing.
Yeah. So that added gasoline.
Tim, you did nothing.
Yeah, you are found not guilty.
Right.
You are not the father. But that really put gasoline on the rivalry because now in San Antonio we're all mad because you're like, oh, Mark Cuban lined the pockets of the ref.
Right.
$100 bills are coming out of your pocket, man.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So that was that was definitely a fun moment for me in the Dallas Spurs series, but it's really not a thing too much anymore.
Right.
It's cool if we get a win, but we're both not. I mean, they might be closer to 60 wins team, but we're definitely nowhere close to that.
We're nowhere near that. It hasn't really. I mean, we haven't met in the playoffs since 2014.
Right.
So we haven't played meaningful games against each other in a while. But when we have dominated.
Yeah.
We are 114 to 78.
Yeah, that's a lot of wins.
So yeah, we're dominating them, and we're also 20 to 16 in postseason. So it actually is a little close in the postseason. Mavericks have played good postseason basketball, but I got to make one point. Since 1998, no two teams have a better winning percentage than the Spurs and the Mavs.
Yeah.
So whenever you look at a rivalry that exists between two good teams that just win, that's a good rivalry really there.
Good, and also, you had Mark Cuban, who was like the complete opposite of anything Spurs related. Like, he's on the bench yelling at the refs, cussing people out, like being very vocal. And, if in San Antonio, it's like, do you know what Peter Holt looks like? I don't know. like people know who he is, but they're like, he's not as flamboyant as Mark Cuban.
No.
So that added a lot to it because it was kind of like, it's not real Texas up in Dallas, and they don't like San Antonio, and then you have Charles Barkley on the post game calling our women fat, and it's just the whole
those
thing.
Big old women in San Antonio.
That's a good shot.
No, it's terrible. But I appreciate you for
So it all added to it, and you look back at those times, and what's funny is I don't know about you, but on my Facebook memories, I used to post a lot about that rivalry.
Oh yeah,
it's like sucking Mavs fans.
Oh yeah, I mean there was just a lot of players that we were salty about. Like let's just dive in. Like Jason Terry. Yeah, like despise Jason Terry. Like I mean okay, like I will say post retirement, I like Dirk. Mm-hmm. I love Dirk. In fact, I love him for what he brought to that team, how loyal he was, how hard he worked. I appreciate the ever living hell out of Dirk.
Yeah.
But then there's just like other guys like JJ Barea who like, oh my gosh, I would punt you if I had the chance.
Who was the dude that pushed him driving to the lane? That was true with Bush League. He was just like, who was that? It was
somebody big did it.
Yeah, it was a big dude. Was it Shaq?
I don't know if it was Shaq or it might have even been Braun.
It was someone, but he went flying. It was
someone
hilarious.
just leveled him. I remember that. Probably great. Deservingly so. I can't recall the exact clip, but yeah.
Nothing would drive me more off the wall than Sean Marion hitting a 3-pointer from the corner. Just
oh my goodness. I respected his hustle, but yeah, whenever he would hit shots with the form that he had, Sean Marion would just make me cringe.
Yeah. I remember my mom really hated she hated the Mavs, especially when they first started out, like with Nash and Dirk and like those guys.
Yeah.
Because she was like, they have such long hair and it gets so sweaty and it's disgusting. She was like, don't they wash their hair? They have to wear that stupid headband. Why can't they wear like an actual like sweatband?
That's too hilarious. Well, yeah, they did have those flowing locks.
They did
early on. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Nash rocked that for a while.
For a while, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, man, he got sweaty though. She wasn't lying.
Yeah, no, I agree 110%. Yeah, there's just a lot of guys that bring up a lot of different feelings whenever you're talking about the Mavs. It's easy to kind of get heated, but you know, it's almost a relief that rivalry doesn't exist anymore, but I almost want it to get reignited in a new way.
I think it can.
It can.
We just have to do something to Luka. We have to basically go up to him and kick the bear and see what happens. Like, you ain't gonna do shit.
Well, I mean, I think maybe we get Wembanyama, maybe we get Scoot. Then rivalry ignited.
Say it slower, baby.
Seriously, like, yeah, Scoot gets me hot and bothered right now.
Yeah, he does. He looks so good.
Yeah, honestly, I'm wanting Scoot just as much, if not more, than Wemby now.
I'm cool if we get a top 2 pick. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. But I'm that going back to the Spurs Mavs rivalry. I actually at one time dated a Mavs fan, and we quickly broke up because that.
Well, hold on a second.
That was not going to happen.
You dated a Mavs fan?
Yeah.
AJ?
Hey, not anymore.
Okay.
I was in college and I was dumb.
Oh, yeah. Understandable. We've all done dumb things in college. Yeah.
We might talk about it on the next podcast.
Yeah. Maybe not. But but understandable.
And it was just one of those things because, you don't think of it as a huge deal, but then when it comes up, it's like, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about.
That's funny. But yeah, there's just so many good moments in the I-35 rivalry.
Another one is when we got Michael Finley.
Yeah, I was about to bring that up. Yeah, absolutely. Whenever we got Michael Finley, it felt like we're like, gotcha. We got something from you, and I don't think we really got the Michael Finley that we wanted, but
but he was a great shooter at the time.
Right.
He evolved his game.
He helped.
He definitely helped. He evolved his game. Whenever he came to the league, he was bouncing out of the gym, driving to the basket, and then he, once he lost a step or two, he started shooting from the outside more, and he was already efficient, so he just got better at it.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we needed.
He helped in 07.
Yep. Oh, 100%.
He was there, and
he started for us.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how many games he started, but it was quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I don't think 07 was really a year where we needed him to win,
right.
But we had him, and that really, really, benefited our depth. Yeah. Absolutely.
Who else comes to mind?
There's quite a bit of. I mean, we've honestly brought up a lot of the people that bothered me.
Yeah.
One of the other little shifty guards that used to bother me was Rodrigue Beaubois. That little dude used to always slither his way into the paint, and I'd be like,
heard that name in so long.
How does he continue to get past everybody? And he was only there for a few years. He really didn't play like tons of meaningful basketball, but man, he really grinded my gears a little bit. I can't lie.
So did Nahara.
Nahara.
He was annoying.
He was a hard worker, dude. Like,
yeah,
he fucking
that's why he was
low.
Annoying.
Yeah.
And then that was a time when we really didn't have like a big that could really go toe to toe with him in toughness, and
yeah.
It was just it was a fun rivalry for sure. It's just, man, I definitely remember watching it on TV, and it would be like an away game, and if the Spurs were winning in Dallas, it turned into a home game quick.
Oh yeah.
I mean, real quick. I mean, it's go Spurs, go chance, like people yelling from like the 200s. Like it got rowdy. I definitely know that there was fights at the parking lot. So
oh yeah. That Well, that would happen in San Antonio as well. Like, you just have a good blend of people whenever you have two organizations that exist on one stretch of highway.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to have a little bit of bad blood every now and then.
It was fun. It was great. I mean, it still makes me happy that we have way more titles than they do.
Yeah.
We were definitely more successful in that time. But a lot of it is because we knocked them out. I mean, we knocked them out 4 times in six appearances. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we are the better franchise. We've had more success. We're better coached. We're
just classier.
Yeah. I mean, just
top to bottom.
Yeah, like, and we're humble about it too.
Very humble. If the only thing I could take from the Mavs is if we can move the AT&T Center downtown the way that the American Airlines Center is in Dallas, I'd be way more happier.
Yeah, that's a good point. Especially you live in the area. Absolutely, but yeah, that's a lot of good talk about the Spurs Mavs rivalry. That brings up a lot of good moments from us just watching basketball 10, 15 years ago and really just appreciating what we were seeing.
For sure. I would love to know from our fans, if any Mavs fans are out there, what they remember from their side. Because that would be fun to hear, them like, oh, I hate Manu Ginobili. I bet they loathe Manu Ginobili.
Oh yeah, same with Tony Parker.
Parker.
Yeah. I'm sure they have the same appreciation for Duncan like we have for Dirk, or at least they should.
They should.
But at the end of the day, I can imagine them being pissed about Manu and Tony.
I remember having a lot of conversation with people hating Tim Duncan from Dallas. I'm like, why? And they're like, because he's an asshole. And it's like, he doesn't talk.
Yeah, there's literally no evidence of Tim Duncan being an asshole. You're just cap. Absolutely. But yeah, sometimes this rivalry brought out the asshole.
Oh, for sure.
In our teams, Spurs, Mavs.
Yeah,
absolutely.
The fun times were whenever it would be during the playoffs and we would knock them out, and we would be at the bars during college, and just like, you got to buy me a drink now.
Oh yeah.
And they're like Kentucky Deluxe, and you're like,
oh no. And then we would drink to good times.
Yeah,
because it's always go Spurs go, and we're drinking with good times. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Speaking of drinking,
oh yeah, speaking of drinking a brew from our sponsor, Turning Point.
Brew. Shout out to Turning Point. This is when life gives you pink lemons. That's what it is. When life gives you pink lemons, you make beer.
Yeah, so apparently so.
This is a pink lemonade sour ale. Very delicious, very light on the alcohol too, so you can drink these all day. Shout out to Turning Point, our awesome sponsor. If you are in the Texas area, give them a Google and find out where you can get Turning Point local to you.
Yeah.
They're selling them all over the place. They're really blowing up this year. And don't forget to go see them in Bedford, Texas.
Absolutely. Yep. Here on Baseline Bums, all day drinking. Yeah. We're partying over here with some Turning Point brews.
I'm like 6 tequila shots in.
Yeah.
A couple Jaegers.
No, we're just playing. But seriously, in Bedford, Texas, it lies one of the best breweries in Texas, Turning Point Brewery. Yeah, go check them out if you haven't already. But yeah, that's a great episode.
Absolutely.
Love getting to talk about NBA scoring, what it was, what it is now, and obviously Spurs Mavs rivalry.
Always fun.
Nothing quite like it. But yeah, thank you all for checking out the most recent episode of the Baseline Bums podcast. It is your host Rob, aka B-Ball Archives. Once again, I have been joined by my homie AJ.
Oh, I got stuck.
Oh, you got stuck. Oh yeah, no.
Thank you.
Excellent wave right there. That's good stuff. But
like and follow our stuff.
Yes. Like AJ was saying, like and follow, comment, subscribe, all of the above. We're putting out good episodes almost weekly, so check them out.
Shout out to our fans in Serbia.
Oh, yeah. Shout out to fans in Serbia that are currently holding up my TikTok. Absolutely. And as always, it is
Go Spurs, go.